And we're live, folks, to talk about this episode of The Twilight Zone. And in hindsight, when people look back on this in a year or two, they might think that we were living in the Twilight Zone with this monetary policy. But no. But yes, we are actually. We are living in the Twilight Zone when it comes to economics. But we will get on with this, and I'll try and do the Rod Serling voice.
The Purple Testament.
Yes, it is a great title.
It's episode 19, is that what that says?
Yeah, episode 19, yeah. It was, because this book goes in the order that they were made, so I have to hunt around quite a bit. Infantry Platoon, U.S. Army, Philippine Islands, 1945. These are the faces of the young men who fight, as if some omniscient painter had mixed a tube of oils that were at one time earth brown, dust grey, blood red, beard black, and fair yellow, white, and these men were models. For this is a province of combat, and these are the faces of war. Why must beards be black? That threw me off. Right then. Lieutenant Fitzgerald is a man who has found his own special wartime hell. Looking into the faces of his men prior to a battle, he sees a peculiar light on the faces of those who are to die. Captain Riker, his close friend and superior officer, scoffs at this until Fitz sees the odd light on his face. Nevertheless, Riker feels duty-bound. He goes into combat and is killed. Soon after, Fitz is relieved to hear that he has been sent back to division headquarters. Packing to go, he glances in the mirror and is horrified to see the same terrible light on his face as on the others. As he gets into a jeep, a sergeant cautions the driver that there are mines in the road. Relax, the driver tells Fitz. We've got a 4-hour drive ahead of us. Fitz replies, I doubt it. A while later, the sergeant and his men hear the sound of a distant explosion. Now, sometimes these summaries are not quite accurate. So, for instance, when it says there, Fitz is relieved to hear that he's been sent back to division headquarters. It was just, it didn't actually sort of play it that.
Yeah, I didn't really see much relief.
Yeah.
And it leaves out that he saw the light on the driver's face too.
Yeah. So sometimes I think when this episode guide was written that he didn't have full access to all of the tapes. And as you said, you've read some maybe Simpsons guides where you think, did they watch the episode? Or just look at a summary from somebody else's book and then add background information that they've found out. Well, I'll try and do Rod Serling voice again. From William Shakespeare, Richard III, a small excerpt. The line reads, he has come to open the Purple Testament of bleeding war. And for Lieutenant William Fitzgerald, A Company, 1st Platoon, the testament is closed. Lieutenant Fitzgerald has found Twilight Zone. Whew, over to you, Jeff.
Well, first, since you read those, I'd say I think those are the weakest ones we've had yet, as far as the intro and outro.
Yeah.
Maybe the second week in a row, but at least the second week in the last few that he's got a Shakespeare quote. So it sounds like he's running out of ideas, and he's going to Shakespeare to help him. There were a couple of things that I noticed special effects wise that I think it was the first time we saw. One was the still shot zoom they did on the soldier near the beginning. I don't remember seeing one of those before. And then towards the end we had the broken mirror where you saw his face on all three pieces.
Yes.
But it was the same shot on all three. So obviously this director, and I don't remember if this is the one that's directed other episodes, but this director definitely has a flair for whatever that's called. Using effects in a way to try to up the drama or the tension or whatever. Which it's kind of cool. I don't feel like it really adds a lot as far as the story itself, but it's interesting to see those kind of things put in there.
And we see that effect quite often now a mirror's broken. It just happens to have the reflection of the same person in all of the pieces, that kind of thing. And
Yeah, that guy. They did the zoom in on the still
yep,
shot of him. Then of course, I immediately recognized Dick York, who, if anyone needed some proof that he's a pretty good actor, well, all you have to do is, if you've seen Bewitched, then you see this and you know that this character is nothing like his Bewitched character. So he's got at least got some range.
Right.
I think there was sort of mental notes I made that I wanted to not forget any of them. I'm trying to remember if I said them all. There might have been one other one. I mean, as far as overall the episode, I would say my most frequent criticism of episodes so far has been ones where my feeling at the end is just sort of a so what feeling, because they just sort of establish a thing and then it just plays out like without anything kind of unpredictable happening. And this was another case of that. So it was pretty similar to the first few episodes, because I think that was probably the main thing that I said at the beginning is it didn't seem Twilight Zone-y enough because there wasn't like any kind of real mystery about anything. It just sort of was very straightforward in how it played out, and it was just sort of, here's some tension and here's this kind of quirky thing and here's more of the same thing and now the end. And this was kind of much that same way. So it's another one of those where if it doesn't have good performances and the music and those other little added effects and things, if those are not effective, then it's just boring. But I thought they were overall pretty effective, so it's decently entertaining. But again, there's nothing like that stands out as, oh, that's really cool, or oh, I need to see this again. It was kind of unspectacular.
I think there were. I think sometimes they go for dread, where it's like what's coming, and they can set up the dramatic irony where it's like even if the audience knows what's coming, they sort of want to see it through. It's a fine line between that and then something being predictable and boring because of it. It's like, how much dread do you create for the situation?
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how I would do it because I didn't think about it. We went straight into the review right after I watched it. So, but there's probably some way they could have set it up where there would have been, him seeing the light on someone's face could be all you needed for a twist or a kind of a dramatic moment, but you needed somehow that to be an unexpected thing, whereas him seeing his own face with it, I mean, it really wasn't. It's like these are all, it's like these are all soldiers, they're in war, like everything they're doing, there's a chance any of them could die, so there's not really any kind of unexpectedness about any of them, including himself. So it's like, somehow there should have been something else put in there that made it more unexpected. Maybe they have him, instead of just having a 2-week break or whatever, maybe he's been sent home and he walks in and he sees his wife with the light or something. That just something like that where you have some actual surprise because it's not like just another one of the soldiers, any of them that could die from anything that happened before.
So this might be another case of with this guy. Might we have a black person on the screen? This may be the second one. I'm not sure. Because remember, you said you found a guy in I think it was one of the barmen in the early ones. Right then. So it'll be only in the second episode.
No, don't be putting words in my mouth, Ben.
I won't say what you're saying.
I don't think I ever said I found a guy.
No. I think you said something about maybe the cast. I think it was the one called What You Want, and they had the bar at the beginning, and you looked at the barman. That tried to get some minority casting going on, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I took note because it did seem It stood out a little bit just because of the time in terms of,
Yeah.
um, it's just my perspective from the future,
Yeah.
in terms of my just what I know of history, thinking that I don't know how often you would have a bar that was pretty much all white customers, but will have a black bartender. I don't know how common that really was in America, or in that particular part of America. So I can't
Yeah.
really say whether it was, you know,
Yeah.
realistic or what. But
Yeah. That particular guy looked a bit mixed race in the.
yeah, that when you see the still shot of the mirror thing, it really
Yeah.
hits home how that's not how mirrors work.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
it's very much a choice by probably the director to say we're just going to do this camera effect, because I think it looks cool. you know,
Yep.
beyond that, I don't know. Since I don't know enough about the director to know if it was just he thought it looked cool, or he thought there's some sort of symbolism to
Yeah.
the triad of mirrors or whatever it was.
I think. Yeah. I think they had this similar shot in The Matrix. Decades later, this kind of thing. Directors always doing this stuff. Like somebody opens a cupboard, they put the camera in the cupboard, and you see the person open it up. There will be shots
Yeah.
that repeat themselves.
Yeah, well, that's a little different in the sense that even though there's not a particular reason that you need to do that, there's nothing unrealistic about it
Yeah.
in terms of if somebody were to be in the cupboard, they could look out and see that. So yeah, as far as needing to do it that way, I mean, it's kind of like we talked about on Homicide the difference in the way they shot the scenes, like when they were driving, because
Yeah.
everyone they'd have somebody in the back seat with a camera so that they would have that view from the
That
back
was
seat,
great.
even when there wasn't anyone sitting in the back seat.
I
Sometimes there was. Sometimes Brody was back there, but but even when there wasn't anybody, they would still have that camera shot.
Yeah, they were very good with that. The way they did that. I can't remember what I was going to say. I've forgotten a point, but it's not very
Well,
important.
when you forget what you were going to say, a good default is just to say Jeff is awesome. That I think
Yes,
is
Jeff is awesome, and I will
yeah.
say
See,
this
there
is
you go.
also awesome. There was a good line. I'm 5 for 5, Captain. How many coincidences? How many coincidences add up to a fact?
Yeah, that's a
That is
good
a good
one.
line. That.
I thought that he did a good job. Reynolds, I guess, was William Reynolds. He
Yeah,
did a
well,
good job of. You've talked before about sort of when they hit those kind of more emotional moments. Some of the actors have maybe not hit the right note with it or whatever. It seemed like he had the right amount of understatement to that in terms of he didn't like go ballistic.
there was just one tiny bit just before the break where he because Peter Davison has talked about this. Where you act up towards the climax, where you got the break coming, and it was just that little bit where he had that scene, and it was just like a marginally false note. It was this bit with that other guy where he comes along and then he gets upset, like this bit here when he gets upset with this guy.
Yeah.
It was just that there was like one particular line where you just got to. But like I said, Peter Davison would say you're acting up to the climax because you've got because he
Yeah,
would
and actually,
say end of
that's what
episode
made me
acting.
think of it. That's what made me think of it because I was like, that very well could have been one of those where he went over the top and he really didn't, in my opinion. So I thought it was fairly well done,
Well,
and
I
I
mean,
thought Dick
yeah,
York's performance was good throughout.
yeah,
So
he was good, yeah. But you know me, I'm I'm a
picky. Yeah.
picky, yes, super picky. What is probably more interesting about this episode is actually what happened in real life.
Well, by all means, Ben, tell us what happened.
Well, if you have a look, you could read it out for us, Jeff. There you go.
I thought that was your job.
No, go on, Jeff. You got a good voice.
I never learned to read. I'm sorry.
Oh, apart from Psychological Types and those books by Kersey.
The look of death on the soldiers' faces in. See, I lose. My head starts hurting when I try to read.
Yeah.
Especially eerie effect, something, overexposing
All right
iron.
then. All right then. All right then.
The evening.
The look of death on the soldiers' faces in the Purple Testament was an especially eerie effect accomplished simply by shifting the emphasis of the lighting over its place in the film. But here is the special bits. Right. A special irony attended this production. Director Richard L. Bear recalls the evening that it was to be the aired. Oh, wait a minute. Let me read it properly. The evening that it was to be aired first run, Bill Reynolds and I were in the middle of the Caribbean swimming for our lives, with 3 broken legs between the 2 of us. Bear and Reynolds had just finished making The Islander, a pilot for MGM, and were flying back to Miami. At 300 feet, both engines quit and the plane went down in the ocean, killing one of the 5 people on board. Although Bear had 2 broken legs, he decided that he and Reynolds would try and make for the shore. Now, I don't know how much this story is exaggerated, the fact that they swam for 4 miles with 3 broken legs between them, but, you know, they may have been fit individuals. We were 4 miles off the coast of Jamaica, swimming on our backs towards shore, about 40 feet apart, when I yelled over to Bill and said, "Bill, how are you doing?" He answered, "I'm making it." A little later, I called over him. "You know what's playing tonight?" He said, "Yeah, the Purple Testament." And I said, "Bill, don't look at me." Both Bear and Reynolds survived and recovered fully. Bear went on to direct 158 episodes of The Green Acres and Reynolds to star in the FBI. William Reynolds. So what do you think of that story, Jeff? Do you think it may have been slightly embroidered?
I have no way to know.
Yeah, but you never know. All right, then. William Reynolds, whose wife had just had a baby 2 weeks earlier, adds an interesting postscript. So William says, Buck Houghton took the show off the air that night because he didn't know whether I was a survivor or not from the first news reports. But I thought it was indicative of the class of that production company that they not only did not make capital of the fact, which might have been the obvious thing to do, but they took the show off the air. I was pleased that they didn't subject my family to that.
No, so they actually didn't air it.
Yeah.
When they originally planned, is what they're saying.
Yeah, probably switched up the order.
Interesting. That's funny because, or ironic again, because we were talking about the episode numbers, and you were saying that the book order, is in production order or whatever instead of airing. Because I started to say, in this case, it's the same because it was episode 19 on my list too. So.
Oh, well, what I've done there is I've actually put that 19 and there. I actually put that on for the, I wrote that in as the broadcast order.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't have
it's to sort of help me find the episodes in the book because they really are jumbled around. So, for instance, this was made in 1959, but shown in February 12th.
So, but February 12th was when it actually aired.
Yeah, that's when it aired.
As opposed to originally scheduled or whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
it's interesting. And one of the things I've encountered living 29 years ago, as I do,
yes.
with television, is that sometimes there's a site that I've used to help me called TV Tango, which has a bunch of old TV listings, has lots of mistakes in it, though.
Yeah.
And so another source I have is the Chicago Tribune archives that has the TV guides every week and every day, in fact. And, of course, sometimes the Tribune, I'll find something that's in the Tribune that will tell me, that will clue me into the fact there's a mistake on TV Tango. But that's not always the case because sometimes TV Tango or other sites are correct and the Tribune was wrong because something was originally scheduled to air, then they changed it before press time for the newspaper, so it wasn't switched. And there's been a few funny situations where there was a particular episode of a show that was scheduled to air on a particular day, and something like a presidential news conference or something like that, preempted it. So they delayed it to the following week. And so the weekly TV guide has, what was originally scheduled to air that week, but then on the daily one, it'll actually have updated to this was the episode, a week later that was supposed to air. And then the TV Tango will say like that it was a repeat rather than because they have the original air date and it doesn't match. So I've had to figure out, like, sometimes it's been up to 2 or 3 weeks that they're off because of things like that. So I tried to actually alert them. The TV Tango site has like a thing about contacting us, but when it doesn't have like an actual email address I can find, it just has that form for the website. And when I tried to submit anything, it didn't work. So
you could get a good job with them, Jeff, because you got the dedication to get it right.
Well, yeah, if such a job existed. I don't know that it does, but yeah, I've done that quite a few times with YouTube comments because I've encountered something where somebody has the date of something wrong, and through my own research, I realize what the correct date is. And most of the time, people have been thankful for that. Some of them have been like dates on like soap opera episodes where I figured it out with nothing more than just the commercials within the episode. Because of when you're following the old TV as closely as I have been, little clues will happen. And when I for instance, I'm watching the show Wise Guy, and I'll be watching an episode of Guiding Light, and it says Wise Guy tonight. That's Wednesday because that's the day of the week Wise Guy. Or so if the date episode is labeled the date that's actually like Tuesday or Thursday, then I can tell them this was actually Wednesday and what the real date was.
Also, it might refer to a sporting event as well, and you'll have
there's been some of those, right? So there's been things where the ones that have the commercial, which is another reason I like things that are intact broadcasts as opposed to things edited out, is that those kind of things are easier to determine when you have the whole broadcast.
Yeah, because we like to see the old commercials.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, and I'll say this, since we're still, this is going on YouTube. If just by some weird happenstance, somebody happens to be watching this video at this point in the video, and you have old, recordings of television, especially from like the early '90s, because that's the period I'm in right now. And you have like complete broadcasts of things, including commercials, things from the network or the local station. I am interested in all of that because I know there's people out there who actually think, because I've encountered this, especially when it came to like the American Top 40 shows and stuff. They would have like the whole broadcast from the radio and think that nobody wants this because a lot of the collectors, they want like the pristine transferred from CD copies and those kind of things. And in general, the consensus among the collectors is they view those that were recorded off the radio as inferior. Whereas I feel exactly the opposite. I love radio, and the closer it is to an actual radio broadcast, the more authentic and cool it sounds to me.
So what I could do, Jack,
what I wanted to say out there is that the people who have been sitting on these recordings thinking nobody could possibly want to see this thing because I don't have time to like go in and edit out commercials, or I've got like a 4-hour block I recorded on some channel and I don't have time to like actually divide it into things or whatever. I want to see the whole thing. I would rather the closer things are to like complete broadcast periods, the cooler it is to me. So there's been times where that, like, one of the best things I found was somebody had recorded from the U.S. Open tennis tournament in '89. They had like the whole Super Saturday broadcast. The Super Saturday at the U.S. Open, for anybody who doesn't know, is what they used to do, where they would do the men's semifinals and the women's final on the same day. And so it would be one long broadcast where starting in the morning with the first men's semifinal, and then they'd have the women's final, go through the trophy presentation, all that, and then they'd have the second men's semifinal that would go into the nighttime. So it was this whole long broadcast, and somebody had posted that it wasn't actually totally complete, but it was most of it. It started a little bit into it, and then it was all the rest of it. So that was really cool.
You could end up a little bit like the woman in the 16mm Shrine, where she goes into the film. You would have to go into the television.
If only. If only. No,
So
I
what?
mean, that
Yeah.
separate from even talking about just the old broadcast, that's something I felt like a long time. I wish I could go into it's like TV or movie universes because they're so much easier than real life.
Well, I mean,
Because everything's always a situation set up for the characters.
yeah.
And real life isn't like that. You have to make your own situations.
Oh.
They're not just there for you.
There was this sketch in. Did you ever see Amazon Women on the Moon, the movie?
I don't remember.
There was a sketch where a guy got zapped into the television, and the wife was moving him, and he says, "Oh," and he was on the Playboy channel. "You can keep me here," and then he moved, and the wife moved him around to different channels and different broadcasts, and she moved into a Disney channel. At least I know you won't catch anything from Bambi, that kind of stuff. So yeah, Amazon Women on the Moon was a good movie, and it's
well, I mean, I felt like that a lot in terms of you can drop me into any of these situations where there's like a role for that character, and I could be, and I would act totally different. That's the thing. I don't mean totally different from myself. I mean totally different from the way, because so many times characters say things where I'm like, that's totally the opposite of how I would respond to that particular situation or that question or that character. And so I don't relate to. I've said before that the only TV dad that comes anywhere close to my dad at all was the one from the Wonder Years, and they're still quite different. But what I'm trying to say is like, there's situations that are familiar to me, and I can say, this thing that happened in this TV show or movie is similar to something from my life, but how it plays out is never the same because not just me, but also the other people involved in my life wouldn't have acted the same way. I mean, some of them might have, but so I always have that. I loved Choose Your Own Adventure books when I was a kid, and I always feel like the closer to that anything is in media, TV or movies, if they were done that way, the cooler they would be. At least give you multiple choice, even if you can't just have the entire reaction of the character in terms of just being that character or, and reacting how you would. You could at least have some choice in the audience. So,
Jeff, what I could do is I could record that section where you make the request to the audience, and I could do that as a standalone video, and then you could re-upload it yourself to your own channel. So
yeah,
it's like
that's cool.
coverage.
At least you told me this time. And just like put up something as if I had done a review of a book that I didn't really do. That's kind of disingenuous. Is that the right word? Like, I don't know.
Well, I was just sort of like taking advantage of it. It wasn't a plan.
I know. I was taking advantage of.
Well, I've also promoted you when you were talking about words and tools.
I know.
Yeah, people like that.
Well, that's a little different. For one thing, is that was an excerpt from my own video.
Yep.
So which I meant to say thank you because I had said that I wanted somebody to do that for me, for my videos. So you listened to me, which is rare. So thank you.
Right. Well, actually, I just did that bit because I thought it was good.
Well, right. But I did say that I wanted somebody to do that. So.
Oh, right. Yeah, so if there are other bits that you would like me to do, I could do that for other sections.
So even if it was only subconsciously, you remembered that and you did it.
Yeah,
so
probably.
I appreciate it.
Because I remember you saying,
"Oh yeah, there's tons of things that I would do that with in my videos because there's tons of little things." Not always this kind of short moments like Celebach did, but there's some of those, and there's some longer things where, there was a piece of it that was really good and kind of to the point, but in the middle of a bunch of other like rambling and things that weren't that great. So yeah, it would take a while to go through and find all of them, but there's plenty.
So what you could do is there's a thing called a video player called VLC, and it has the record feature on it, and it's best to start the recording 10 seconds before the actual bit that you want to record because it takes a while to sort of get in sync to start recording, and then you'll end up with a clip that starts about 3 to 5 seconds before the actual thing, and then you just get a little recording of a recording, and that's what I used, VLC.
All right. Well, we can talk more about that later.
Right then. So it's just some
Did you
behind
have
the
anything
scenes
else
stuff,
to
folks.
say or read with this one?
No, I'll give it 7 out of 10.
Okay, I'll give it 6.
Okay. I went back and forth between 6 and 7.
Yeah, I did for a little bit too, but ultimately the ending being kind of another one that just kind of peters out, and he quoted Shakespeare again for no real reason, other than that they got the episode title from it. I mean,
yeah.
But I don't really understand what that means though. What's purple?
Well, yeah, quoting Shakespeare is just like a shorthand of look how educated I am, how well read I am, and it's like a little signal to
Yeah, well, I understand if there's an
Yeah.
actual reference to something that but it doesn't explain why it does that. So it's too deep for me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been very hard to live up to the title, because when you hear the title, you think, oh wow, what's that going to be about? And what you imagine is usually going to be better than what it is with such a weird title like that. Purple Testament.
I give it credit for it holding my attention, but it had some flaws. It was not spectacular. So it's not what I would show to anybody to get them into Twilight Zone. I'll put it that way.
Well, I mean,
bad.
I mean, it's going to be difficult, isn't it? Because every episode is unique unto itself, and with different characters, different setups. It's going to be very hard to have them, especially when it's the same guy writing most of the episodes.
True. But there was nothing like cringeworthy about this one. It just wasn't that spectacular. So that's why I gave it a 6, because that's kind of my slightly below average score.
Yeah. Yeah, it was okay. And then Rod Serling talking. Now, the way he talked about the next episode was very interesting. But I won't say anything about it because Jeff likes to no spoilers in his life.
I'll just say the title is Elegy. So join us for that.
Is it elegy or eulogy? I don't know how he spelt it. Anyway.
L-E-G-Y is how it's spelled on my
Oh, elegy then. Yeah, because eulogy, I think, is EU. Yeah.
Right.
Elegy might be a different thing than eulogy.
Yeah, I think it is.
Like elegiacal, yeah. Anyway. So then, folks, I will stop it. So Jeff has given it 6 and I've given it 7. So bye-bye, folks.